Cross your biggest they were using me all along story. I met Fabian almost exactly 2 years ago at the weirdest possible moment. I was grabbing some groceries at Trader Joe's when I heard this store manager absolutely laying into some guy about parking in the wrong spot or something. The manager was being such a jerk about it, all red-faced and pointing, making a scene in front of everyone. The guy, Fabian, just stood there looking mortified. IDK, what came over me TBH. But I stepped in and said something like the parking signs were confusing and maybe we could all just take a breath. The manager glared at me but backed off. Fabian looked so relieved, and as we both checked out, he asked if he could buy me coffee as a thank you. Fabian moved in with me about 8 months into our relationship. It seemed fast, but his roommate situation had fallen apart and it just made sense. My parents were cautiously optimistic. Mom liked him right away. Dad took longer to warm up, but eventually he seemed to accept Fabian. They even played golf together a few times, which was Dad's ultimate seal of approval. Everything seemed perfect, until it wasn't. I started noticing patterns. Whenever we were around my parents and the topic of money or careers came up, Fabian would go quiet or change the subject. If my dad mentioned his business, Fabian would suddenly become super interested, asking detailed questions. When we were alone later, he'd make these little digs about my dad being old money or set in his ways. One night when we were scrolling through Instagram together, he saw a photo of his ex and muttered something about how she had the looks but not the stability. When I asked what he meant, he just kissed my forehead and said I was the whole package. I remember feeling weird about it. I started paying more attention. I noticed he'd be on his phone a lot, smiling at texts, but would put it face down if I walked near. Once I glimpsed him messaging someone about how things were looking up financially. When I asked, he said it was just his buddy talking about a new job. I wanted to believe him. 3 times. 3 times. I overheard snippets of phone conversations with his mom where he said things like, "It's comfortable," or "I'm just holding on for now." Each time he'd see me and immediately switch topics, talking loudly about weekend plans or what to have for dinner. After the 3rd time, I started recording random conversations when he was on the phone. Then came that dinner at his parents' house. They invited us over for this fancy meal. Steaks, salads, wine, the works. Lydia kept touching my arm and telling me how happy they were that Fabian had found someone so supportive. Arthur asked questions about my dad's business, which felt weird since they'd met several times already. After dinner, I offered to cut the pie Lydia had baked. I went to the kitchen, leaving my phone on the dining room table. But before I left, I started the voice memo recording. I just needed to know. The kitchen and dining room were separated by a half wall, so I could hear them, but they couldn't see me. I stood there slicing the pie when I heard Fabian laugh. His voice got lower, but I could still hear every word. She's convenient. Her dad's money keeps me comfortable while I figure things out. My hands froze on the knife. I might have stopped breathing for a second. He went on. I'll stick around long enough to squeeze what I can out of her. Then I'll find someone worth showing off. I heard Arthur snort like he was amused. Then Lydia's voice, quieter but clear. Just don't get her pregnant. Fabian again. God no. Can you imagine being tied to her family forever? Her dad is an arrogant old goat. If it wasn't for the money, I wouldn't even say hello to him. I stood there, holding the knife, my whole body just burning. I wanted to scream or throw something or walk out and never come back, but instead I can't tell you what happened next in this short video. The full story is on the channel, link below.